Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 3 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-hosts,
Dominic Castillo.
And Giovanni.
All right. So how have you all been since the last episode?
I have been pretty okay. Some things have gone by my workplace that are a little bit weird, but it might transcend into something pretty awesome. But aside from that, everything else has been pretty slow. My cat's just roaming around over here. I'm alone in the apartment at the time of the recording, so it is pretty slow for the time being. But other than that, also, I'm not sure I've already told you, Jack, but I have already managed to fully print an entire anime figure from top to bottom with 100% success. And I managed to somewhat paint it, but I kind of messed up the face, but I still painted it, and it kind of looks pretty cool.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome.
Did you
What?
start your new job?
Oh, no. I'm still waiting on the training video. I already sent in all my stuff. I already confirmed with the main El Mero over there. I'm just still waiting on the training video.
So,
And what?
sorry. So, does this mean your Tumby's Pizza arc has finally come to an end?
I think so. But yesterday at work, I got a call, right? And it was just for a normal order. A normal order. Nothing crazy. It was just for a large pizza and a sandwich. However, usually, me being me, every time I answer the phone, I'm always somewhat enthusiastic. I don't try to sound boring, because I know it's just a pizza place. Putting too much energy inside of a pizza place with minimum wage isn't, the best ordeals, I guess I would have to say. However, when the customer came to pick up the order, right, they came to me and told me that they heard me over the phone about how enthusiastic I was. And then he started to talk to me about my business ethic, my work ethic. He talked to me if you're studying, if this is your first job, and then he decided to tell me that if you want, I could offer you an opportunity to work alongside me, which is the guy, to work at the PWC building down in downtown. Because he said that with this sort of attitude and energy that I have, just putting onto, such a small pizza place, I could be using that in terms of hospitality over at where he works. And for those who don't know, the PWC is I believe it's what was it? I forgot, what was it? Peter Waterhouse Cooper or something. I'm not sure if it's Peter, but I know it's Waterhouse Cooper, and it's like a business, type of consultation, auditing type of ordeal, and I think that's pretty cool. He gave me his number and his name. That was also pretty cool. I thought it was kind of weird because I'm just a pizza boy. But other than that, it might be an opportunity. But yeah, that's pretty much all that happened with me this week.
Yeah, that's low-key kind of crazy to think that happened. That's pretty interesting. I mean, you do gotta be a bit weary, You obviously never know, I guess in a sense you don't know who these people may be or if it's legit, but that's still kind of crazy that just showing that enthusiasm at your job was able to someone recognize you for that.
It is pretty crazy.
And how about you, Gio? How have you been since we last recorded?
Kind of. Well, I'm still kind of stressed about my future and stuff. That's just natural at our age. But a good thing that happened this weekend was I went to a Dreamcatcher concert. They came here to LA, and it was honestly the most amazing show I've ever been to. The music was loud. The people were energetic. It was just a very awesome experience as a whole.
I mean, kind of like perfect timing in the sense because we just were talking about obviously K-pop music and stuff like that last week, and then you get to go to a big old concert. Did they play the song that we reviewed on the episode, or what? Like,
Yeah, it was. Well, they played the intro to one of their albums, which is kind of like a minute 30 of just like straight instrumentals, and then they went straight into Mason, and dude, so it was so loud. I don't know. It was. I get the music video is one thing, and we talked about that in last week's episode, which you guys should go listen to, by the way, if you haven't already. But watching it live is just a completely different story. The one thing I didn't like about it, which is normal at any concert, is how long the line was. And they performed at the Wiltern.
oh yeah,
Yeah. It's over there on Wilshire and Western. And they definitely should have picked a bigger venue because they're more popular now. The line literally wrapped around the apple 2 times.
Really?
Yeah, I was shocked at how that many people could fit in that tiny little venue.
yeah.
And it was really funny because once we got in, I won't talk about this for too long. But once we got in, people didn't know where to go because there weren't that many staff members around guiding people. So we went upstairs. For the people who had seats upstairs, they started forming another line, but they kind of lost track of where to go. So for a good 5 minutes, they were just doing a circle around the thing, and then nobody noticed that the entrance was just off to the side to the seats. So then I realized that, and I just kind of squeezed in between people. But they were literally just walking around in the circle, waiting for something to happen, and nobody realized. It was really, I don't know, it was questionable at best.
I remember going to the Wiltern for a concert, and it is one of the smaller venues, but that is pretty funny to think that people kind of got lost in there, but that's probably to be expected when you have a ton of people cramming in there. I know when anytime I went to a concert, it was usually in smaller venues, so it was really a struggle to either get floor seats or to for some they have the balcony area, so it's if you want to get a good view, you got to get to the railing before a ton of people, else you're kind of just left standing there watching from afar.
Yeah, I didn't want to get a floor seat because I thought, because the fandom is known to be a lot older than everybody else, I thought it was going to be just a bunch of olds or people jumping around and being hyped. And then when I got to my seat, the music started playing, and all they were doing was moving their light sticks around. I didn't see a single person jump or anything that was horizontal in movement. It was just kind of back and forth with the light stick, and I was like, oh, this is kind of dead. But the people in the seats were very loud, which kind of made up for it.
Yeah, I mean, you always gotta hope for the best crowd. I know all 3 concerts that I've gone to for an artist that I enjoy, his crowds are always super crazy, and we were supposed to have tickets to be in the pit, but then the pandemic happened, and I forever cursed the pandemic for taking that experience away from me. It's gonna be his biggest venue in Los Angeles. Where was it gonna be again, Mac? The Greek Theater? Yeah, it was gonna be at the Greek Theater. I think it was gonna be crazy.
Perform at the Belasco.
Yeah, it was what? The Belasco, the Wiltern, and then House of Blues, right?
House of Blues in San Diego?
Yeah.
No.
It was
Long Beach, one of those 2?
Yeah, all 3 of those are pretty small venues, and then finally he was going to come out to a venue like the Greek Theater.
Because I think that year he wasn't performing here. He wasn't... Oh, the Palladium also. That's the one that we missed when he did his first album. His first tour. The Palladium in Hollywood. And then we saw Therapy and the Belasco. and then Perception and
In the Will
that's
Turn,
it.
and then it was
The
Search in the House of Blues.
House of Blues, and I think it was Long Beach.
I forget where the House of Blues like venue is, but that one was a bit more difficult because it had like we were at the top because all the like floor seats had already like filled
The
up and
top.
stuff. The top was like a nice view, but there was all these like beams in the way. Like if you were standing in a certain spot, your vision like your view of the concert would kind of be impaired because it had like these really weird like support beams
But
styled
the
in a
top
way.
was more lit than the bottom.
Oh yeah, that was our experience. Was that things were more rowdy at the top, kind of like how you were saying.
Mm.
And then the Search was supposed to be in the Greek Theater, which was his biggest
Venue.
venue in LA.
And for the price of those tickets, it's likely we're never gonna see that again because, man, we were lucky to like
Because
we've been lucky to see the rise of this artist because it's like we've been able to just constantly see it through the fact that like we saw him start off as a small guy and like we were getting tickets for cheap and like that was probably the most like I don't know how much they costed but like for the Greek theater of course it's gonna be expensive. Yeah, but you know it's very cheap compared to what other artists are charging these days.
I know the Weekend was freaking.
For the Weekend to be charging that much money, he better be on the floor, like on the floor seats area, singing in my face. If you're gonna get me to pay $500 for some concert ticket, I still remember Jose. You guys remember Jose went to go see a Lil Baby, and I forgot how much the tickets were, and he was like, "You better come and start rapping in my face if you're gonna charge me that much."
Yeah.
Dom, have you ever been to a concert?
I have not. No.
Boom.
No, not a single one.
You're missing out, man. They are kind of expensive depending on the artist you go to, but it's a crazy experience.
How expensive are we talking?
It depends on the artist.
Yeah, it
Like
really
we
does
mentioned.
depend on the artist.
The Weekend's
Because-
charging like $500 for his tickets.
I remember
500.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause and it's like also part of his like world tour
Yeah.
where he's touring both his albums that have recently like released. So it's like very expensive.
and it's in the new stadium.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm. And then one like smaller artists is like what, $70 maybe?
I remember
Maybe even less.
I remember I waited.
Yeah.
I waited in line at GameStop to pre-order tickets to watch Biggie and Tupac.
You weren't even born. Anyways, but yeah, definitely, Dom. If you have an artist that you enjoy, you should like make it a goal to go to one of their concerts.
Yeah.
Like
It's
I got
really
a list
worth
of
it.
artists that I'm still trying to see. You know, my cousin, Gio. You know, I have a cousin who's into K-pop. She already told me that the moment Twice comes to LA again, she's gonna fly out here and she wants me to go with her. That's one thing she wants.
Dude, like the one thing that came to mind during the Dreamcatcher concert was I should have gone to the Twice one here in LA. They had 2 concerts, dude. I could have gone to one of them. So I don't know. I was like, I already been to one. What's the point of going again? No, I really regret not going to that Twice concert.
We saw 3D.
Oh,
Yeah.
but next year for sure. Or whenever they come back, I'm definitely going.
Yeah. Surprisingly, the one band that I like really enjoy because they're like in my top 3 that I've yet to go see is Paramore, but I don't know. I've looked and they barely come out to LA. I don't know, but Dom, if you had to choose one artist that you could see in concert, who would it be?
Oof. Damn. Definitely Kanye.
That's a good one.
Definitely Kanye. I kind of wish I went to the what was it? What was this? During the when he went to the LA Coliseum with Drake.
Oh yeah, the Larry Hoover concert.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
Honestly, that's one I kind of like hate that I missed too, because it's like when it was happening, everyone was like, "Oh, it's just gonna be like the Donda stuff," which isn't bad, but you know, everyone's like, "Oh, it's just gonna be him performing the Donda album." To see him pull out all his like greatest hits, you know, and perform them there, that was like, that's like the moment where you're just like, "Damn, I hate that I missed that."
True.
That's a good choice though. Kanye's a really good performer. Obviously, you know, it's like it's cliche at this point, but that clip of him like in that huge stadium with all those fans, and he plays the one note to Runaway, the one piano note, and like everyone goes crazy.
Oh yeah.
I would definitely enjoy to see that. On a unrelated note, I was talking to Dom and Gio before this, and I think it's kind of been semi-documented on this, but I think I've always like talked to Dom about like how at times I'm replaying through older classic video games, or I mean, I wouldn't call them classic, but like, let's put it this way, I started replaying through games that I played in my childhood. So for example, I played through the entirety of the BioShock trilogy. I finished Uncharted 1 like, I think it was like a month ago. I replayed through Injustice. I replayed Batman Arkham Asylum. I'm trying to remember what are some of the other ones. I can't seem to remember. But another one on that list was the Assassin's Creed Ezio trilogy. And I finished yesterday Assassin's Creed 2. And
Nice.
That was a pretty interesting playthrough. There's a lot of things I enjoyed about it. There's a lot of things that left me confused, and there was a lot of things that I hated. So like the good part was it was a really good story playing through it. I liked the way it progressed. I liked sort of the freedom to like travel around and not feel like you had to always do the missions like one after the other. Like it wasn't never like finish this mission and it immediately transitions into the next and there's no like break. It was like, oh, get to this point if you want to start the mission. If not, you can explore, do the viewpoints, do what is it, explore the tombs to get the seals and stuff like that, visit the different cities if you want. I enjoyed that. One thing, which was probably a reason why I never really finished them as a kid, and I'm surprised it didn't get me angrier and like cause me to break a controller, is the mechanics and controls are still very wonky, I guess, if you could say. Like the climbing mechanism is still as difficult as I remember it back in the day, where it's like you have to really be specific with what you're doing, because it's like if you start trying to climb a wall but you like, I guess, run at it wrong, it's like your guy runs up the wall and jumps off of it, and that doesn't work when you're trying to climb to the top of a like huge tower, and your guy, instead of jumping, decides to just jump off and you fall to your death. And it's just like, and
that was definitely
and the
one of the
one,
most annoying things.
Yeah, and the other thing too is the races. Anytime you had to like chase after someone, oh my gosh, was it so difficult, because it's like you're trying to follow their path, but then it's like, again, your guy just does the wrong move. He doesn't want to jump to climb up. He jumps off the wall, or he gets stuck in a section where there's clearly the option to jump like to the side, but he won't do it unless you climb down and jump at it from below. It's like a weird thing. Like, it's hard to describe with words, but like people who have played it know what I'm talking about, where it's just like there's so many things when it comes to that like running and climbing mechanisms that just really get you mad and don't really hold up as well when you replay it. Another thing I didn't like, and it's not a knock against the game, it's a knock against my patience, is those levels where you have to either escort people or follow them to a certain point, and it tests my patience because either they don't follow you properly or they're walking at such a slow pace that it just makes the mission take forever, and it really makes those missions difficult when you're getting chased by guards or and stuff, and the person you're escorting doesn't decide to just follow you running away. They decide to go and fight them, and so you have to go back and fight, and then that causes more guards to show up, and that just causes the mission to become longer and longer. But other than that, I still enjoyed a lot of the stuff, the mechanics. I really enjoyed similar to Arkham Asylum, the stealth missions, having to strategically plan out where you're going, taking out certain guards and situations. The only thing that was like really confusing, as I mentioned, was just the ending of it, where I was just so confused by like the fact that this is like Rome and Italy and stuff in like the 1400s, 1500s, and yet there's like this advanced technology and stuff, and now there's like when you reach the end of the game, it's like I guess this like God talking to you, but it's like it's not talking to Ezio, it's talking to Desmond, playing through Ezio's memories, I guess you could say. And like I don't know, I guess I gotta play what's the one after it? It's not Brotherhood, it's
It is Brotherhood.
Oh, it is. But oh yeah, because Revelation is the final one. Yeah, I have to start playing through Brotherhood to figure out what the heck's going on there. But that was like a really confusing thing to me. It was like, you get to the end, and like you have this orb that's like has like these like I guess you could say like futuristic powers, and then there's like this God talking to you about how the Earth is going to be consumed by the sun or something like that. I only found it weird because like that's such a weird twist. When this entire time you've been playing through, what is it? Like I said, 1400s Italy, and the most advanced like technology you've seen so far is having like a pistol on your wrist that you can shoot. Like that's the most advanced technology. But yeah, I don't know where. Here's this orb and staff that can cause someone to make duplicates of themselves. But
it's like if you. Well, not to dwell into it too much, but it has to do with the modern side of Assassin's Creed. Like if you pay attention to that, it'll give you like a better understanding of how these people in these like ancient, well not ancient, but just like the medieval times have these artifacts. But I don't know, like when it comes to Assassin's Creed specifically, I really like the aspect of the assassins and doing assassin things and the Templars, and then these two like secret organizations going at each other for thousands of years. But once you start getting into like those who came before, like in the god artifacts and all of this other stuff, it's just kind of like, I don't know, you lose me. That's where the series loses me. Anyways, what did you think of the soundtrack to AC2?
It was pretty good. Obviously, I'm a guy that pays attention a lot to game soundtracks. A lot of times, it can make or break a game, and I know a lot of people are like, "Well, how exactly can it?" But it's like, it can really immerse you in like whatever like the game setting is, you know. So like here, a lot of like the soundtrack really kind of immersed you into that. Like, these are older times. This is definitely like you can tell it's parts of Europe and stuff like that. I really enjoyed a lot of it. I enjoyed a lot of the scores. It makes me want to play the other two more, like, and like not even like take a break in between them. Cause like all the other games, it's like after I finish them, it's like, all right, I'm gonna take a break to move on to the next one rather than moving on to the next part. I give myself a break. But like the only time I didn't do that was BioShock Trilogy. But like right now I'm wanting to play Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and then Revelations right after, because I don't know, while the other games are still pretty simple in their own ways, something about Assassin's Creed is simple that makes me want to continue like playing it, because it's, I guess, you know, it's so easy to pick up and put down.
I agree.
But you know, I to perfectly segue in the way I talked about it, perfectly pick up and put down games. So in the past, we've had a lot of discussion about games. More specifically, the three of us, especially in one episode, were very vocal about just the fact that a lot of games don't really seem to have that effort put into them. A lot of, you know, companies don't seem to care about putting out the best product and all that, you know. And we kind of talked about how, like, you know, like in the modern age right now, it's like more people are kind of leaning away from multiplayer games because they're just too copy pasted, and like the solo player games kind of add more intrigue and value because it's like there's more to get into, like story elements and all that. But and we've kind of talked about it, like when it comes to like indie companies, it's harder for them to kind of break through. Like you see a couple that really start off as indie and really make that breakthrough. And one of the biggest examples that like came to my mind in terms of its success from what it originally was, and when presented the idea, I know it kind of seemed odd to you too, but I think it's something interesting to kind of discuss. I thought of the game Five Nights at Freddy's, and more so the series, because when you really think about it, when it started off, it was almost like, in a sense, I think it was, right, Dom? It was, I forget the guy is Scott. It was like his last ditch effort. Like it was going to be like his last game because every other thing he was doing wasn't like succeeding as well, right?
Yeah.
So it was like this game was his last ditch effort. And all the game really was you're sitting in a room, you can't even move, you're just sitting there. You're watching security cameras, you're having to control the doors, and the only thing you're having to worry about is watching for the animatronics that are coming, like their movements, and controlling the doors to stop them from getting to you, but also having to like do it in a way that conserves your power to last until 6 a.m., to last the 6 hours. And it was continuous in the sense of it's 5 nights, so you go one after the other and stuff like that. Obviously you can like pause the game and come back to it, but that was basically like the whole game was just watch the animatronics, make sure you don't essentially die to them, and conserve your power, or else you die automatically because you can't protect yourself from them. Such a simple concept, and yet it blew up so much that it got it continued the cycle of, oh, here's Five Nights at Freddy's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It started off as that simple game, yet here it is, like games later, it branched out to have all this different lore to it, this story to it about how the animatronics are alive because they contain the souls of the children that were murdered in some crime in the grand scheme of the story of Five Nights at Freddy's. And then, it branched out into getting books that tell its story, branch off games from the franchise that don't necessarily connect but start their own, It just was like something that was like, it's crazy to think that we have all these games, like, we talked about all these games, but yet here's a game that is so simplistic, but yet blew up quite like almost in an instant, almost like from the moment it came out, it caught so many people's intrigue. And so like I don't know, obviously there's a lot that gets into it, but I want to kind of hear like just generally what you guys think, because like I said, it was kind of a weird topic at first to present, but like the more you kind of like think about it in connection to that gaming video we did, like it's just, there's a lot to like connect and dive into.
I have a question just about FNAF in general. So the point of the game is you're, what is a security guard, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Who, and then you have to survive the 5 nights, and then you're free?
Yeah, so in the first one, after you finish the 5 nights, you do the 6th and 7th night, because they're like added custom games, Like the 6th night is supposed to be like difficult, and the 7th night you can customize the difficulty of the robots. And in the game, when you go there on the 6th night, the guy who's on the phone, right, Dom, doesn't he like call you and tell you, oh, like the place is shutting down, you aren't supposed to be there?
Yeah.
And then after the 7th night, you're fired because you were messing around with the animatronics, essentially, even though like the place had closed down. And then the second one is like a prequel to the first one. And then all the other ones kind of follow a similar suit, but it's really different in the sense of like, obviously you're still watching for animatronics, but like that's after that, like the first and second one, that's where the story really comes into play, where it's like it starts becoming more of a thing of like it ties into the story of you're you're like the son of like the main antagonist of the game, and you're like having to do all these mini games to uncover the truth about what happened and stuff. Like the third one, you're at an amusement park. The fourth one, you're a little kid in his own house, like dealing with the nightmare versions, which aren't real and stuff like that. It's like this whole complicated thing. But like, yeah, basically adding to my point that I was saying, the game started off as just being a security guard surviving the nights, and turned into this whole thing of uncovering the history of what happened to these children.
I remember with the little kid one, or the game that you play as a little kid, I think I was watching Sky Does Minecraft or Sky Does Gaming. I don't remember what channel it was. And I think it was Chica, the yellow bird. There was like a jump scare with her, and like it got me like really badly. And I screamed out loud, and my dad just comes running into the room like, what's happening? Because he thought I was like being murdered or something. But I was thinking about the whole indie thing and why this game blew up so much. And I think it has to do something with like at the time period when it came out. I think like COD Zombies was a very popular thing at the time, and like there was this whole competitive thing going around where let's see who survives the longest, and then it was kind of like you're bragging right if you made it past a certain point and nobody else had. So I guess that kind of was a driving factor in the thing, because you have to survive 5 nights, right? And if you could survive those 5 nights, you could go tell your friends, oh, I did it, and then if other people can't do it, you're like better than them, I guess. But then there's also like the YouTubers at the time and who was playing it and how they influenced basically a whole generation of kids to try out the game as well. And those kids eventually just grew up following the series, because content creators have a huge influence over how well a game does. Well, to some extent, because if you look at a game like Fall Guys that came out 2 years ago, I think, or maybe a year ago, and how it blew up because of Tim the Tap Man and his inability to get a crown. And then everyone was hyped about the game, everyone was playing it, everybody was talking about it. But then once Tim the Tap Man got his first win, it kind of died from there. And now it's like, I don't know for sure, but I've heard people say that it's practically impossible to find a match in the game.
Well, right now it's currently like seeing a resurgence, like, or why I say resurgence, a resurgence because of like, again, kind of like content creators getting back into it, and then plus it became free. But like, yeah, after like the Tim the Tatman thing, it was like barely anyone really played it. Like they just kind of got bored of it. But kind of like how you're saying, it's like content creators have such a big influence, because like now, because it's getting like posted everywhere, people are playing it again. It's like now everyone is joining in on it and stuff. But yeah, that was another game where, you know, it had like its big blow up, but then it saw like a really, like, it took like a really big nosedive. Dom, what are your thoughts on the whole like FNAF thing as a whole, and like indie games, you know, having to work really hard in a sense to make their game get the attention that it needs to be successful?
Yeah, I feel like the small majority of the games that make it, you know, that break out into the limelight, are mostly favored by kids, regardless of the fact that the whole point of horror is meant to be like, you know, the spookies. So, like with like the majority of the newer games that are coming out are also like what was it? What's the new game? I'm not sure if you guys know, but I think it's called like Poppy's Playtime. We had Poppy's Playtime. We had Baldi's Basic. We had Hello Neighbor. What was it? Like Siren Head and all type of like short yet like scary games that are meant to like scare the viewer. The majority of these scary games aren't scary, yet they're meant to be shooting for the demographic for kids. And I feel like this sort of, I guess, not exploitation sort of strategy they're trying to go for, but Five Nights at Freddy's, I believe, in it of itself, was trying to be an overall generally scary game with only just incorporating, the
Jump.
what was it, the jump scares and stuff like that, but also the atmosphere as a place where children get to roam around and play and eat pizza and whatnot. But at the time, it was unique because there was nothing really ever done. And then as time went on, people started like following the narrative. Okay, if we make if we make a game that's scary, however, yet is able to appeal to kids, anyone can play it, and we can make like gameplay of it or like speed runs and make it accessible to everyone, whether by making it free or easy to access. It further, and also sponsorships with like YouTubers and stuff like that. It further, how would you say it? I guess pushes the game out into the limelight where everyone gets to play. Because I know there's a lot of like indie games that like try to follow like the steps of like FNAF and stuff like that. However, they were never really successful, and or there was never enough funding, so they just left dead projects behind. Which kind of sucks because that means there was a loss of potential of like possibly future games to like become crazy, become insane, become as popular as it is now. And
no, finish. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think at this point, moving forward, it will be definitely difficult for new horror games, or like with games with like horror games with like different like schematics that are tied to it that make it shine. It will be more difficult for them to grow because of the successes that we already have with previous games. And as time goes on and people grow up and they won't see these games as scary, but instead like of a challenge. Because like Five Nights at Freddy's, with the existence of Ultimate Custom Night, for those who don't know, Ultimate Custom Night is essentially every single animatronic that's existed in the series that you could go against them all in one game, which is like 50 animatronics. And I think, where there's no more spooky, and now it's just a challenge at this point, just to see who can win and who can make it, going against 50 animatronics instead of just 4 from the original game. That's just
I think you brought up an interesting point when you said that the environment that like the kids at the time could relate to, because Chuck E. Cheese was very popular during that time, or it was still popular, I should say, because I think now it's kind of like a dying business. But back then, everyone went to Chuck E. Cheese. It was like the place to go on your birthday. That and what's the other one? It was like they had like pizza and like arcades. So Shakey's, yeah. So those places were still popular back then. And that kind of like, so the kids were familiar with the environment, and then they're presented with like a spooky version of what they know. So that kind of made it more appealing to them. Because now, I highly doubt the majority of kids even want to go to an arcade because of the whole, I don't know, for some reason kids want to grow up faster and they want to act like they're old. Because I used to be like that. When I was like 12, I would be like, I'm 12, I'm grown, I could do whatever I want. Like, that was part of that crowd. But now it's even worse because you have like 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds that are trying to do the same thing, and they're not enjoying their childhood. But that's a different point for a different day. And I think because our generation and like the generation before, millennials, we grew up differently, that kind of made FNAF more intriguing and exciting for us because we were familiar with the environment. And with other games, but then the whole spooky thing, because most horror games that come out now aren't scary. Like, they have jump scares, but some of them aren't even that good. They never get you nowadays, but before they would get you because I think there's like they want to keep the spooky, as Dom is saying, tamed, and they don't want to go too far with it. And I think that's why most horror games now, or what Poppy's Playhouse, didn't do that well.
Yeah, and especially because you can tie that into too many games now are trying to replicate the success of another one, you know? Because like how Gio was saying before, like if it was a horror game, it relied on like a ton of gore to like creep you out and gross you out. But then FNAF came out with like none of that, and like all it was doing to like scare you was the jump scares. And so like you saw a ton of games try and replicate that, but at that point they kind of lost focus on what made it so successful for FNAF, in the sense of like the jump scares were successful because of the build up of suspense in that game, you know, where it's like you're so worried about the other tasks that you know, it's like, oh, you see them move, oh snap, I gotta check this door and make sure that they're not here, and then like boom, you get jump scared because you didn't expect it. Like you were like, hey, I just saw them last, like I saw them the last I saw them, they were on the stage, where are they now? Oh boom, they're here, they are out of nowhere within like the speed of 5 seconds, right here at your door, ready to jump scare you, you know. And
yeah, and it was like the whole anticipation, and just it's going to happen, and you don't know, like, because there's at one point at the game where you can't do anything about it, so you're just waiting for it to happen. Yeah. And then when you check the door and you like flash the light and you see the shadow of the animatronic there, you're like, oh no, it's like it's coming for me. And then at that point, just waiting for the inevitable. Yeah, and that's what.
Sorry.
Yeah, that.
The best clip I can like think of to really summarize that is the clip of Markiplier when his power he didn't conserve the power enough, and so the power ends up going out, you know, and it's only 5 a.m. And Dom, I know for sure you remember this, and Gio, you probably do too. It's like he's sitting there waiting as like the power's going out, and you know Freddy Fazbear's face is flashing as it's playing through the inevitable. He's waiting for the inevitable to happen, that he's gonna die, and then at the very last second, right before he can get jump scared, boom! It turns to 6 a.m. He won the night, and you know he has this like big overreaction that he won and all that, and that he survived the night despite losing that much power and all that. You know, like that buildup of suspension and anticipation is what really made that, and that's what a lot of games didn't successfully replicate, because they kind of focused on one certain factor, you know. And
do you think that was the sense of satisfaction has to do with it? Because everything nowadays is kind of like instant gratification, and that kind of like killed the whole feeling satisfied for working for something.
I think that's another thing too, having to work those 5 nights and having to do all that over the course of like, you know, the in-game 6 hours to really get to that ending point of the game, you know.
Because I think really if we're to like talk or like to go into that discussion, I think microtransactions have to do a big had like a huge influence on that. Because nowadays people are like, oh, I want to level fast, or I'll just spend money and get all of this instead of working for it. And I think that kind of ruined games now, because if you want, well, for certain games, because in other games there's no such thing as microtransactions, because if you want to level up quickly, before it would be like, oh, I have to play the game a lot, right? I need to, like, if I want to get better at something, I just have to grind and play.
Real quickly, thank you all for joining for this episode of Season 3 of the Rule 34 podcast. We'll see you in the next episode.